What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Harmon Jr. on any of your favorite social media out there. I interact with people. I'm cool like that. So, people, we're in the home stretch. This is the final two shows of the year. Yes, we have this one you are currently listening to and one more. We'll be taking off for Christmas break. Actually, maybe not. We may have a special bonus holiday episode, but that all depends on if a feature article that I wrote goes live or not next week. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But we may have a bonus episode during Christmas to listen to or not. But if not, that's okay. We're ending the year strong. Thank y'all. According to, I don't know, Spotify, we went up like 92% viewership. I don't know what that means. It could have been from 6 to 100, but who cares? Progress is progress. But enough of that, because today, ending the year strong, I got a good friend of mine. We became even closer friends recently. This guy has been, he is the soul of NVC, if I will. He does. I'm for real. But hey, I will tell you this right now, people. If you do anything in this world for free, you're the soul of it. But he's around the internet. He does a lot of things. One of the unsung heroes of video game journalists. It is my good friend, Logan Plant. How are you today, sir? How are you doing?
Hey, well, thanks for that wonderful introduction. I'm great. Happy to be here on the Full Circle. And I think we got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. Yeah, you mentioned it, right? Freelance writer for IGN. Work behind the scenes on Nintendo Voice Chat, their Nintendo podcast over there. Also floating around doing my own podcasts. You may have heard me on Ode to Games. Guesting around other places. Odell and I were on a Metroid Dread spoiler cast over on the Platformers, which was a good time and kind of how we got connected recently.
Yes. Also, Logan, I messed this up because I introed you too well. But I always ask people, just in case people don't know, who are you and what do you do? Even though you already explained that.
All right, you want me to again? I can walk through it.
I don't know. Who are you and what do you do? What you haven't already said.
All right. So I'm Logan Plant. I am a big Nintendo guy. I am freelancing full time. I just made that switch this year. I used to work in TV news, but that didn't work out too well for me. So I'm happy to be doing this full time. I love podcasting. I also love baseball. That's one of my other big passions. I have a baseball podcast too called Bonus Baseball if you're interested in that. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Well,
you know what? A lot of people I know have worked in TV. Like a lot. Maybe that's something. TV's not where it's at. It's where it's gaming.
Yeah. It was kind of like a full-time thing to help supplement the gaming stuff for a while. But TV is a lot of time. It's a big commitment, a lot of overtime expected, and it just wasn't working well with what I really wanted to be doing.
I feel that. Well, congratulations on making that full-time switch. I've always respect people. I thank the Lord. I finally got a job in video game PR. But I remember thinking that was impossible. I was like, how do y'all do it? I want to be there. I want to be where the people are. But so, as always, everyone, we have a great show planned for you today. We are doing video game report cards. Yes, it is the end of the semester, end of the year. You know what it is. If you're in college, you're about to get those final grades back. Maybe a lot of your parents maybe say you're going back to college, but you're really living at your friend's apartment. For everyone in grade school, do you really want that new Xbox or PlayStation for Christmas? Chances are you ain't getting it anyway if your parents haven't gotten it, but sure ain't getting it if you got them bad grades. So me and Logan are going to go through all the big three. Yes, I wish we could do everyone, people, but you know how it is. And we're going to talk about what they did this year, how they did, and ultimately what is our final grade for them. And first on the chopping block is the PlayStation. Yes, people, the PS5, which is still hard to get, holiday 2021. I secured my bag last year in November. If you haven't, my heart goes out to you. I don't know what to do to say that. I can't give you any words of, comfort.
It's rough. I can't believe, honestly, how impossible they still are to find. I mean, we knew last year, it's going to be tough this year, but maybe next holiday it'll be better. And it's arguably worse. It's maybe harder to find than they were, in the pre-order process, which was insane enough already.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, and she was like, "Can you help me find one for my son?" And I'm not gonna lie, part of me was like, "Yo, I got mine. I'm really not about to extend any extra effort, but I will do my best." And I keep seeing all these things where like, "Oh, if you were invited, to the PS Store through your PSN or however they're doing invitations," and I'm just like, yeah, like you said, this is harder. So, but I mean, I guess kudos to PlayStation because your product can't be found because people keep buying it. Shame on the scalpers. But we're not here to talk about them. Last year, we ranked the PS5, but now I guess it's doing better in the sense that we have SSDs now. Because I ran out of space maybe like 2 games ago,
Yeah.
so I'm not doing it until Sony releases an official one, just because I'm that type of guy. But Logan, how do you think PlayStation did this year so far? With I would say in terms of exclusives, we had Ratchet and Clank and I don't know, is that kind of it in terms of importance?
You had Returnal, you had Deathloop, which is obviously an Xbox Game Studios game, but still debuted on PS5 as an exclusive. Destruction All Stars was an exclusive.
Oh man, no, the way you with the car. Oh, I completely forgot about that. And about Deathloop, Returnal, yes, but I'm at the point now. If it's on PC, do we still count it?
I'm gonna say yes. Maybe that's because I just don't play games on my PC at all. But I still feel like a console exclusive is still a big deal because I think there's plenty of people that have consoles that don't have a PC rig good enough to play these games. So a PlayStation 5 might be their only realistic option to play something like Deathloop right now.
I mean, that's fair. Also, in case you didn't know, Deathloop apparently is unplayable on PC. So now I think about it, yes, Deathloop is very viable. I have a friend who's a PC gamer, and he told me that he may just get a PS5 because he's tired of it because outside of Deathloop, PC games have had a big trial and error run this year, ironically, for the Master Race. So, there's no report card for PC, but yes, all them PC games. Yeah, I hope they get up to snuff. But yeah, you're right. We have Returnal, which I'm not the biggest fan of roguelike, but hey, it looked amazing.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it. I was frustrated with it because they did add this in later, which I think was a win, but the save state issue from the beginning of the game where it expected you to sit down in 2021 and commit 2+ hours in one sitting to something. Who does that anymore? Like, nobody does that. And I really loved the game, but it came out at a very busy time back when I still was both working a full-time job and freelancing on the side. And like, I don't have time to commit 2+ high intensity hours, not even just hours, like really intense gameplay to this game. So they did patch in the save state feature where you can basically bookmark it and then the bookmark is deleted when you come back to the game. I haven't returned to it since then, but I know that was a big boost to a game a lot of people already loved, and PlayStation did acquire Housemarque after the success of this game. So I think that Returnal is a big win overall, even it had kind of a rocky launch, and if it may not be for us specifically, I still think that was a pretty big exclusive for PS5.
Very true, which I would probably say, just based off of accolades, Deathloop is probably getting the crown for best PS5 exclusive or, timed exclusive, however that game's going to, re-release or if it ever does. Yeah. I don't know what the contract says. But, and before I talk about Deathloop, I want to touch on Ratchet and Clank because, it was the first true test of the PS5. And I feel like it checked all the boxes. It looked amazing, 0 load times. There's so much going on, and the game never really dips at any point. I'm sure at some ones it did, but for me, my personal experience, when the action was at its highest and I'm literally blowing things up with level 10 Omega weapons, I was just like, it was almost sensory overload. I couldn't really tell what was going on just because it was all going on at a full clip. And I was talking about this. I feel like it did get snubbed at the Game Awards, but the more I reflect on it, maybe it didn't, because as amazing as Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was, it was more or less Ratchet and Clank just at a higher frame rate. So maybe not. Deathloop, of course, being, storytelling and what that game did. But in comparison to other previous years, I would say, this is probably across the board exclusively, not to, a PlayStation issue, but we're really light on the exclusive this year for PlayStation. Granted, all the games got pushed to February. That's a joke, but kind of not.
It was a weird year because the only other exclusives I feel like we didn't mention was Kena Bridge of Spirits was one that came out earlier this fall. And then besides that, it was Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Death Stranding Director's Cut, Final Fantasy VII Intergrade were the big PS5 games this year. And I guess I kind of struggle with that a little bit because of how shoddy the upgrade path was to these. Like Ghost of Tsushima was so confusing to upgrade from your base PS4 version to the PS5 director's cut. It was like, oh, it was a $10 upgrade if you were just upgrading on PS4 to the PS4 director's cut, but it was a $30 upgrade from PS4 to PS5, and it was just super messy. And then Intergrade, you had the save transfer debacle where it was you had to like do this really weird thing with your Square Enix account, log into Final Fantasy VII on PS4 to upgrade to the PS5 version, and then install it on your PS5. It was just kind of a disaster. I don't know if Death Stranding had anything weird like that because I didn't play it, but just I feel like for the first full year of the PS5 to have the biggest games just be director's cuts of not only PS4 games, but PS4 games that came out less than 2 years ago. Final Fantasy and Ghost both last year, and then Death Stranding fall of 2019. It was just a bit too much too soon for me. I would have really liked to see Horizon hit this fall or something else big to kind of be a bigger benchmark exclusive for PlayStation 5 this year, which I feel like they didn't really have.
Oh yeah, I touched on this earlier. If you really want to be cynical about it, Ratchet and Clank was the only true PS5 game that came out this year. And well, Returnal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was Returnal specifically developed to be on the PS5?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. It did look really great.
Okay. Yeah.
It did look really good.
It wasn't on PS4, right?
No, it was a PS5 exclusive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Ratchet and Returnal. And, I was actually mad at Ghost of Tsushima because it really felt like the director's cut, just because there was so much new and stuff, it felt like that was the true game. And like you said, and I really feel like it should have, you talked about the Masonness. I really feel like that game should have been, if you have this game on PS4, it's just there. You have it on PS5. You get the digital download, all the bells and whistles, end of the day, done deal. But yeah, you talked about the path of so many games that had to do this. And it's weird because you think something about like Mass Effect Legendary Edition, a game that was what, $40 right out the gate?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you're asking me to pay, basically for a remastered version. And Mass Effect was an amazing remaster with a whole bunch of stuff. And it's just, it's cumbersome. It really is. And I don't know if a Horizon necessarily would have saved us from all of that, because if I'm being honest, my gut feeling is Horizon is going to have some problems, and I don't know what that is exactly.
Okay, I like the prediction.
But my prediction is Horizon Forbidden West will be a game that maybe looks good, but not necessarily plays good. And I don't have any real reason. That's just pure gut reaction. But so if we're looking at this solely as, PlayStation, not multi-platforms and stuff, if someone went and acquired a PS5 this year, 2021, let's say, mid-year, let's say May, April time, right before the summer, June at the latest, and you're looking for new experiences you didn't have, I would dare to say there really wasn't much there. I would say 2021 was still a year where you could have survived not having a PS5.
I agree, and I got a PS5 at launch last year. I was very excited for it, and this is all coming from someone who's a huge PS4 fan. I think that is one of the best libraries of games of any system ever, and very excited to pick up the PS5. And I picked up an Xbox Series S about halfway through this year in May, and I think I've spent more time on it this year than I did on my PlayStation, which I wouldn't have guessed. I wouldn't have guessed a year ago that I would be spending more time playing both new games and just Game Pass on an Xbox than I would be playing games on PlayStation 5. But I don't think that's to say that even if the lineup this year wasn't as good, they did announce a lot of things that are coming in the future. They had that showcase event earlier this year where we learned about Wolverine, Spider-Man 2. We know God of War is coming next year. The KOTOR remake is going to be PS5 exclusive for a while. So there is stuff in the pipeline that we know we're going to be playing on PS5. Just the combination of a first year for a console is usually not that great, with some exceptions like the Switch. But with COVID also impacting it, I think it makes sense this was a lighter year. I'm not worried about PlayStation because I know there's a lot to come, but this year, yeah, you could easily go without one.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And like you said, PlayStation, good stuff is coming. There's much to look forward to in the future. But specifically this year, there was a little light, and it's we're getting to the point, COVID's always the easy out, but excluding excluding, COVID, just looking arbitrarily at what happened. We did have some breakout games. As if you look at the Game of the Year list, we get Deathloop and Returnal, both PS5 exclusives, up there, proud point. And the other games, minus one, are all PS5. Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Is Resident Evil Village a PS5 exclusive?
No, it's on Xbox.
It's on, okay. Was 7 an exclusive? One of these was an exclusive, right?
I think maybe 7 was for a time, yeah. I'm not sure.
Okay. I was about to say, how could we forget that? I don't play scary games. They're always like in the back of my mind. And but yeah, so now that we talked about the games, I'm looking at, people have been talking about PS Now subscription. This was the year to get into it. And I still wasn't sold. I still think PS Now was not a service that lived up to any hype or potential.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to it. I think that's a big ding against PlayStation this year, is that there's the rumors that it's coming, but right now there's nothing even close to what Game Pass can offer on PS5. And to me, Game Pass has saved the first year of the Xbox Series X and S because there's just so much to play for just the subscription fee. The PS Plus, the collection of PS4 games that you get on PS5, the PlayStation Plus collection, didn't grow at all. I thought that was something they might expand with more games, but it just remained at the 20 that I think it was at launch last year. PS Plus, the free games, there was never anything that big. They did add some VR games, which I think was a smart move with PSVR 2 coming, where people can just start building this VR library now if they don't already have a PSVR headset. But other than that, the subscription benefits just weren't there like they are on Xbox.
Yeah. If I will say that is probably the smartest move by PlayStation. The fact that even if you have no intention of playing the game now, don't have the hardware, whatever the case may be, you can still add games from that month to your library to be downloaded later, which I think is ingenious because, it's like, one, doesn't take up space, and two, it's like, oh, I can grow a library of games that I might want to play. It's in comparison to Game Pass, what Xbox is doing, it's small potatoes. But to your point, in terms of VR specifically, that is ingenious because it's like, clearly I would never download a VR game without a VR headset. But if I can just add it and just perpetually have access to them if I ever acquire one, I thought was a smart move.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll give them that. So considering all this, not to kill all our time on PlayStation, I would give a PlayStation somewhere of a C. Maybe a C minus if I was being critical. They did enough to pass. They did enough not to fail, but nothing this year specifically to be impressed with. Where are you falling with them?
I had a C or a C plus written down. I think the games themselves, there's some good stuff. I think that showcase was pretty good for what's coming in the future. And there were a couple things we didn't mention, like there was that big PS5 firmware update too that did support the SSDs, like you said, that also fixed some of the trophy and UI stuff that people cared about. So yeah, it wasn't bad by any means, but it was just a pretty average year. We're not really going to remember 2021 at all as a big year for PlayStation.
Oh no, not at all. But next year when all those AAA games start rolling out, even the AA games and surprises, that could be different. And if we do get the rumored PlayStation Pass, that actually sounds nice. I like alliteration, so.
Yeah,
so
Pass.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty sure they wouldn't call it that, but if they did, I would knock it. So that could be a game changer. But moving on to the big elephant in the room, Nintendo. And so I just want to start this off by saying that Nintendo was pretty much MIA for most of this year. If I'm looking at it like January, February, March, April, a lot of those months there's nothing to tick. because I think of something. So, I always forget that Mario 3D Land plus Bowser's Fury came out this year. In my mind, that game came out last year, 2 years ago. I don't know. It's not a this year game. And then I also think, when I think of Mario 3D Collection, I'm just like, did that come out this year?
That was last year.
Yeah, like it's because I say that to stress that so much has not been happening with Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like, in the sense, like, Animal Crossing perpetually feels like a game that's just been out the year that you're in, because there's really nothing else to I guess compare it to. And it's not to say Nintendo didn't release things. Clearly they did. Things came out, but I would argue most of it wasn't memorable. We had this big. So Nintendo suffered from what I call a media narrative that they didn't create, or at least I assume they didn't. This year was built upon what Nintendo was going to do. 2020 was a year where Nintendo didn't do much. We had Animal Crossing and, all that fiasco. I mean, well, not fiasco, but just goodness. The Switch somehow became popular again. It sold like pancakes last holiday season, which I'm not sure why it did, but I don't know. People woke up and found out it existed. And this year was all about the Super Nintendo Switch. Switch Pro is coming. Nintendo's doing this. We're going to get the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, maybe announcement, maybe a holiday release. We're going to get XYZ. And so Nintendo's year to me was news lines, headlines, news stories, expectations that Nintendo themselves never told us. But we all just kind of ran with it. And I remember every direct was just like, a popcorn event where nothing happened. I think the biggest thing we got out of direct this year, outside of Sora and Smash, was Bayonetta 3.
Yeah, unless you're not counting E3, because E3 was pretty big. You got Metroid Dread at E3, which I think was a pretty big thing for this year.
Oh yeah, I was gonna get to that. That was the big wow. I mean, hell, anytime you announce a game and it releases a month later, that's just astonishing. That's Nintendo's gold star to me. But I'll save it for later. But I'll go ahead and say this: if that did not happen, Nintendo might have failed this year in my mind.
Okay, I have a different take. I think that this was actually kind of an underrated year for the Switch library. Yeah, if your big bombshell was Metroid, that's not as big as years past for the Switch. It's not as big as Zelda and Mario in year 1 or Smash in year 2. But it's a big deal, and to see how well received it was, and to see people talking about Metroid again, I think that's a big deal for Nintendo this year. To see it win Best Action Adventure at the Game Awards and just get the recognitions it's gotten, that's a big win. But other than that, I think that this year for Nintendo really kind of filled out a lot of things that I thought were missing in the Switch library. I think that you look at something like Mario Party Superstars, which just came out in October. That is the best Mario Party has been in, 15 years. Like, the Mario Party games have been just terrible for so long. And this game comes out, and it's fantastic. And Mario Party sells really well, so that's a big kind of underrated hit that I think they had. They had WarioWare come back, which kind of seemed to come and go, but I think every Nintendo console needs a good WarioWare, and I think this one got one. I think that it's good. And then you had new Pokemon Snap come back, a franchise that people thought was never going to get a sequel, and it did, and it was really good. You had fun experiments like Famicom Detective Club, those Famicom games, visual novels, murder mysteries that were translated for the first time and localized and released 30 years after they originally came out. It's crazy. And then Mario 3D World, you mentioned that doesn't even feel like this year. Yeah, it does feel like a really long time ago, but that game, it's the best Wii U game. It's out on Switch, and they made it better. Bowser's Fury is great. They improved the run speed and the jumping and the physics of the main game, and they added online play. So it was a big new package for that game. So I actually think Nintendo's library was solid. There is a big lull in the summer where really nothing happened. Skyward Sword HD, don't want to talk about that. But I think start of the year was fine with Snap, 3D World, Monster Hunter Rise, not published by them, but still a big exclusive for them. And then this fall with Metroid and Mario Party and WarioWare and SMT5, which people like. So I didn't think it was all that bad this year.
So here's the interesting dichotomy, since we're on opposite ends of the spectrum here. So I played new Pokemon Snap. I wasn't the biggest fan
Okay.
Only because they ask you to replay levels for the sake of just gaining points and nothing else. I wasn't a big fan of the system. It's like, oh, you need 10,000 points for it to, advance the level to the next level. And it's like, wow, I really have to play this level 6 times, if not more, taking more or less the same shots just until I hit a point counter. And it was just very remnants. There's a part of me that believes Pokemon's Go success has hurt the Pokemon's franchise in the sense that they keep doing things that I blame on Pokemon Go. For example, EXP grinding for the sake of grinding. But I will say Pokemon Snap did, if you remember, had the surprise DLC drop that did make the game a lot better in my mind, but I feel like it came a little too late to get people back in the game. I feel like New Pokemon Snap was a game that could have been great if it was handled differently.
Okay.
But in the same sense of what, Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, it came out so early in the game, so early in the year, and had so few support until the DLC, which was about 2-3 months ago at this point now. I think it was late September, early October. Don't quote me on that, but it was.
What DLC? What are you talking about?
New Pokemon Snap added 3 new levels. It was free.
Oh, yeah.
It was a free. Yeah. They added 3 new levels of the Lintos region. You can go, new things, new pictures. But see, to your point, that's how it wasn't lackluster because the DLC was actually pretty good. I would say it made the base game more palatable. But that's to my point. It just kind of released to up, because Pokemon Go had like a huge, like after its initial month, like, no one was playing the game and, yada yada numbers and all that good stuff. And I was just like, you really should have did this a lot sooner. And to the point, promoted it a lot better. Like they literally just kind of dropped the trailer and was just like, yeah, it's here, it's free. In the same vein how Animal Crossing received its last free DLC update and promised to no more support ever, which I always think is a weird thing to say for a game. We probably get it that it won't get support, but to be like, this is it, with the exception of Smash Brothers, because Sakurai literally did everything in his power to give everyone their biggest wishes, and so
I think with Animal Crossing, it's like just setting expectation. Fans were so rabid for new content that for them to say, here's a huge 2.0 drop and a paid DLC pack, but that's it. I think it just sets the expectation. So in 3 months, when Animal Crossing fans have burned through all the new content, they don't go and pester Nintendo again for another year saying, where's version 3.0 and the next DLC pack? So I think that's the reason behind that, which is similar to Smash.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say a comment that may get us into a debate here.
Okay.
But I kind of really think that Nintendo, in my mind, only survives this year because, by comparison, Xbox and Sony did not do a lot themselves this year.
Yeah.
So,
I think I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you made SMTV, SMT5. Every time I saw it. Every time I saw it on Twitter, I always read it as SMTV, and I was like, "What new TV? SMT5." Sorry, So the Switch did things. They might not have got the biggest fanfare, but things did happen. To me, the biggest thing being Sora and Smash, and Metroid Dread. Yeah, that was huge. But again, I really think what hurt Nintendo most was these news stories and expectations that they didn't set. Like, if the media, us included, was never, pumping this idea of we're getting Zelda, we're getting this new Switch, which, ended up being the OLED. That's cool, I guess. But compared to what it could have been, I feel like Nintendo would have probably been in a better spot. It just would have been like, oh, look at these things that are happening. But just that the fact that expectations were so high and skewed that, like, every time something did happen for Nintendo, it was negatively impacted because it was never what the zeitgeist was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
To no fault of their own.
And the Switch OLED, it's not a mandatory upgrade. It's not the big half step people wanted it to be and was rumored to be. So I get how that can feel like a big negative against Nintendo's year. And I do think there are a couple other negatives too. I think that it was a weak anniversary year for Zelda. I'm not one to say, 35th anniversary, what a milestone number. 35? Who really cares about 35? I thought it was weird how much people were freaking out about, oh, Mario needs a huge 35th birthday last year. They gave it to him, but it's because they had no big fall game last year. So like, okay, how are we going to drum up some marketing here? They didn't need to do that this year for Zelda. And so Skyward Sword HD, I do not like Skyward Sword, so that did nothing for me. I would have much rather seen Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Switch. That would have been way better to see. You also have the Game & Watch thing, which just came out. Yeah, it's fine. It's a cool little trinket, but it's not Breath of the Wild 2, which we did see this year, and it looked awesome. That trailer had everyone talking for days. I know I still think about it, just theorizing what's going on in there. It was a great trailer at E3, and next year is fine. I just hope it makes next year. And then I think the biggest ding against Nintendo is Nintendo Switch Online this year. The N64 expansion pack with the Genesis games also, priced at $50 a year, was so poorly received. People hate the emulation. I think it's just such a big missed opportunity what Nintendo's doing with their virtual console library right now.
Yeah, it's okay. First of all, what emulate? So I guess I got humbled this year because I'm personally not a fan of illegal emulation of games, Dolphin and things of that nature across the board. And I understand game preservation is not the best at all. So I don't do it, but I don't really knock anyone who does it. But now with, GTA remastered, Nintendo's whole N64 debacle, and just so many other things, I'm just like, I almost feel silly telling people not to emulate games because clearly not only is the game industry not doing it, they somehow do it bad, which makes zero sense to me. It's your code.
Bad for a lot of money.
Yeah, I will say I'm not upset at the price in the sense that I've been paying $60 a pop to PlayStation and more or less Xbox, but now I have like Game Pass Ultimate, so now it's not $60. It's like I don't know, maybe like 120 over the course of the year. How they charge it. I don't even know how I'm charged anymore. I was on the $1 subscription for like 2 years and then finally ended. And now I get like a notification they took $26 out at some 3-month interval, I think it is. I'm not sure. But I'm like, whatever, But I've been paying PlayStation and Microsoft over $50 for so long that I find it hypocritical to be like $50. But with that said, if I'm not getting my money's worth, if these games are emulated poorly, then what's the point? Because let's be real, Nintendo Online has sucked for a long time. Yes. That's no big secret. I feel like knocking it at this point is almost pointless because it's just like it sucks, and we all just agree that it sucks.
Yeah, it's true, but it's just a shame because they've got a lot of good online games that just could be better if you had a better online infrastructure to support it. So I just think every year it goes by where it just feels further and further behind. I've been playing a lot of Halo Infinite multiplayer, and last night I jumped into Splatoon 2, and I was playing with my girlfriend, and she's like, "Oh, we're not on the same team?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot you can't even play on the same team if you want to in Splatoon. It's random." And it's just like having to click through the opening with Pearl Marina and getting through the like, oh, here's the 6 stages that are available. It's too much, and it just feels archaic. And Splatoon 3 is coming next year, so that's something they could fix with that franchise, but it's just a symptom of the larger problem that is Nintendo Switch Online in 2020.
Yeah, and it's okay, so here's my thought. So we said this with PlayStation, and it's true for Nintendo, maybe even more so. So we know Bayonetta 3, for simplicity's sake, let's just assume all these games are happening next year. Yeah. Nintendo's usually pretty good with not announcing something and let it happen 5 years from now. Usually when they except for Zelda. Usually when they announce something, it's coming. So, okay, we know we're getting Pokemon Legends Arceus, which could be a huge hit. We don't know. It's a huge unknown for me. Yeah, even as a Pokemon fan, I don't know how that game's going to eventually turn out. So we get that. We get Splatoon 3, we get Bayonetta 3, we get Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, I believe it's called. Kirby and Breath of the Wild.
Excellent. Looks really cool.
Yeah, we're getting that. Smash, I feel like Smash is still going to be Smash. We're getting no more updates. It's done. But, assuming that game's still going to be big, especially if Evo's happening in person next year, Smash is going to, Smash is going to be fine. We're going to get that. We get Zelda. So let's say we got some surprise announcements. Like, let's say we get Pokemon Generation 9, maybe a look at a new Mario. Hell, maybe we'll get Metroid HD. The Switch is in a position to have a phenomenal 2022.
Yeah, and Mario Rabbids 2 is another one.
Mario! Yeah. So the lineup is already like I'm already woof. How am I going to play any other games? With that said, I really think Nintendo does not make it out 2022 without a legitimate hardware upgrade. I'm thinking games like Splatoon 3 does not look that well. It looks worse than Splatoon 2. I'm hoping to God that's alpha footage or pre-alpha footage.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, yeah.
Bayonetta 3, I feel like could not properly have justice done to it with the Switch's current power level, if you will. And in the other games, I'm pretty sure they can work on the Switch hardware, but I feel like we're at a point now, the Switch is going to need a hardware update to remain viable going forward. If the Switch does not have a hardware update by the end of the year, it is not going to be in the best position in my mind.
Yeah, it's going to be 5 years in March since the Switch came out, so end of the year you're looking at almost 6. Yeah, that's about time for something new, at least a half step. But I just don't know if Nintendo's going to do a half step. I don't see them wanting to fracture their player base like that. You remember the new 3DS, which had just the bare minimum hardware improvements, just slightly faster loading times. That's the most they've ever done. So I can see it just being a Switch 2. And I think it should be a Switch 2. I think that Nintendo has found huge brand success with the Switch. I think if you put a 2 on it instead of a U, people won't be confused. And I think it'll do really well. I think that it should be like Switch 2, 3, 4, 5, just like it's PlayStation 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that they can never go back on this hybrid device that they have until cloud gaming is a legitimate thing, which I don't see being real for maybe a decade. So I don't see Nintendo doing for maybe 2 decades, if we're being serious. So I think Switch is the brand of the future for them. And yeah, if we got a Switch 2 next year, that'd be pretty big.
I've never considered it, but yeah, it may be time for Nintendo to just pick a pony and ride it, so to speak. The PlayStation could never be the PlayStation future, the PlayStation it's the number system. The only thing I could see them doing is, maybe being cheeky with the naming, like when they get to 10, it's just called PlayStation X, but like they don't call it the 10, or something cheeky like that. I think Xbox with the Series X and Series S, at first I was like, this is dumb naming convention wise, but I'm like, maybe not. Maybe like, because if you think about Microsoft's a computer company, so if Xbox naming conventions are something more of like computer words, like I'm like maybe this can work, because Xbox One X was not it. I don't know.
No, it's bad.
Yeah, so yeah, if Switch, especially with the success and everyone knowing what it is, if they went with Switch 2 may be a better name than Super Nintendo Switch and Switch Pro, only because you just really don't want to confuse no one.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, I think we should just get a new console. That might be the better move than just the half step than the let's just call it the 4K Switch, or just a Switch with slightly more power that I don't know. I think as much as graphics don't matter, we're at the point where like, well, you can't be dumb with it either. Like, I feel like if we don't see a Switch that's at least 4K, it doesn't have to be 60 frames per second. Like, just visually, no muddy graphics. I think we're at a point where I'm just like, Nintendo, I don't want to play a game that's muddy in any way, shape, or form. Every game needs to look like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, which still looks amazing.
Yeah,
7 years later.
Yeah, I don't understand how they did that on the software, hardware. Excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so
what are you giving it?
I'm giving it honestly, I'm going to be a little biased here. I'm going to be blinded by my Nintendo love and put them on the pass fail system and just give them a P.
All right. they got the P because of Metroid. Fair enough. I'm going to go with, I think this year for me was a B- or a B. I think it was better than PlayStation's year. Also for the fact that you could find Switches on store shelves, which is a big deal. I know the Switch OLED was hard to find, but the other Switches you could find basically all year. I think Nintendo Directs being back in a big way, they were basically completely absent for like a year and a half prior to this spring when they came back. The full like 40-minute feature presentations. I think that's great that they're back. And I just love seeing the output for some smaller franchises like Metroid coming, Pokemon Snap, and the Detective Club games we mentioned. I just really liked some of the smaller output this year from them. So I'll settle on a B- for Nintendo this year.
You know what's funny? Now that you said it, that makes even the blowback that we didn't get any big news even harder. Nintendo Directs were gone, and it's like, oh, they're back, and it's like, here's some nindies. Here's the Breath of the Wild 2 proper trailer. I mean, yeah, that was cool, but it again, I feel like we all wanted some fanfare, and if I won't be facetious. If I wasn't given a pass fail, it is honestly a D. It's a college D, so it's still passing, or it's a college D failing. I don't know. It depends on what. It's a non-core class D. How about that? There you go.
All right. Yeah.
And I will say, yes, Metroid Dread did save it. Metroid Dread is enough to give it a C, but I feel like that's too much of an impact. So I'm gonna give Nintendo for me a D.
All right.
Only because if I'm being super critical, 2020 Nintendo and 2021 Nintendo, 2020 was the better year. And 2020 and there's no way I can say 2021 was better in any way outside of Metroid Dread. And if Nintendo 2020 in my mind was a B or maybe an A minus, I would have to just give 2021 the D.
What were you playing in 2020 that was better?
I just feel that 2020 was a better year for me. So we had Animal Crossing, the Doi. I had Sword and Shield. I played a lot of Sword and Shield. I played a lot of Smash, but better.
Those games didn't come out in 2020.
They didn't. You're right. You got me. Oh. Wait, when did Animal Crossing come out? It came out
2020, March 2020.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. And then you got Paper Mario. You got the Mario Collection. You got Hyrule Warriors, and that's almost it. That's most of what Nintendo came out with.
Maybe. By comparison, you got me there. I don't know. I guess 2020 was just the COVID year, and the Switch was just the thing to play, and
that's
it kept
true.
us
It was
from
the hot thing.
Yeah, it kept us all from going insane. But in terms of Origami King, it was good, but mostly forgettable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I only say that because Paper Mario, the original, there's so many moments. The Thousand Year Door, one of the greatest RPGs ever made, in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just so many. So even Super Paper Mario has its moments. I will say Origami King was a return to form.
Yeah, much better than the last two, certainly.
Yeah. Sticker Star and was it Paper Jam?
Yeah, Color Splash on
Color
Wii U,
Color
Paper Jam crossover, all bad. All three are bad.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Rose-colored glasses off. Maybe 2020 wasn't that amazing of a year, but 2021 also. Similar to how you said your PlayStation, 2021 was a year that my Switch did not get touched a lot. And this is the first year where I did not spend as much. If you exclude any time I played Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining and Pearl, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and any time I spent playing Pokemon Snap, it's just... Yeah, honestly, I can say this without a shadow of a doubt that if it wasn't for Metroid Dread, my Switch might have collected some dust this year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, it was a quieter year for sure then, especially with what we come to expect from the Switch. It has had some really strong years in its run, and yeah, this one was one of the lower ones for sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give it a D. I'm
stick
going
with
to.
it. I like it.
I'm gonna. That's just where I am. So unlike the previous two, Xbox has had a phenomenal year. Arguably probably its best year in comparison to the other two. The usual story is, Xbox is usually lagging behind. It's the PlayStation Nintendo show, or the PlayStation show because Nintendo doesn't really compete, and none of the systems truly compete with each other and what that term really means. But Nintendo even, far less removed. Like, you can readily compare PlayStation and Xbox, but when you try to compare them to Nintendo, it becomes this weird dance of how do we compare them? Yeah. So people will always, reign PlayStation King, but this year is different. And Logan, how much, if we remove Game Pass, which we can't because that would be unfair because Game Pass is a very valuable thing. But just for say, if we remove Game Pass, does Xbox still reign supreme?
No, they do not. I think if you remove Game Pass, they had a year equal or worse than the other two guys. I think that when you look at the games, the big Xbox exclusives that came out, you had Flight Simulator, which was great, but very niche. You had Age of Empires, which was not even on Xbox. It's only on PC. Forza and Halo are excellent. And Psychonauts 2 is on Game Pass, but it's also on PlayStation. So if you remove Game Pass, that's just no longer an exclusive. So, no, I think that Game Pass really is integral to why Xbox is successful. And, yeah, if you take it away, they're still lagging behind. But with it, I think they're out in front.
Okay, that's fair. Because I wanted to get that out the way because to prove a point, I think a lot of people don't realize that there is no Xbox without Game Pass. In any way, shape or form. It's, even as great as Halo Infinite is and other things. And
it is great. I love it.
It is great. My mom's getting me an Xbox Series X for Christmas if she finds me one. So yay, I'm excited about that. This is going to be the first time my mom has gotten me a console since the PS3, I think.
Nice.
Maybe. I don't know. It's been quite some time. But so with that said, the thing is with Xbox and Game Pass specifically, Game Pass is a way to play so many games. When you think about it, it is the cheaper option than buying all these games individually. You save so much money. And it's a trend of this year, period. Not exclusive to Microsoft, but I wanted to save this comment for when we got here. I feel like this year rolled on the backs of games that are already out or have been released before. Things being, Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if I can even call it the DLC. It just feels like the natural part of the story. Yeah. Like they could have probably released it as another game, but they didn't. Thank God for them. I spoke on it earlier. We had Mass Effect, Legendary Edition. You spoke about Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Walking Simulator Director's Cut. I'm sorry, I did not like Death Stranding. I didn't. I really tried. I'm a big Metal Gear guy. I support Kojima. I really tried to ride that bandwagon, and I couldn't. Yeah,
I didn't buy it. I just tried it out on a friend's copy, and it wasn't for me. But I appreciate that some people were able to find something.
Yeah, good for them. And and we go to Game Pass and we look at all these games that just had were available that you didn't play or you could play day one, depending on quote unquote if it was a new game, new-ish game. It just makes me realize that this year rolled on past glories collectively, and Game Pass is just the personification of that.
Yeah, in a year with not a ton of huge banner new games, why not play old games? And this was the best place to do it. And it got a ton of stuff this year. The entire Yakuza series is on Game Pass. Hades, which was one of the most beloved games last year, is on Game Pass. Back 4 Blood was a new game that launched day one on Game Pass. You had to pay for it on the other platforms. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There was so much here. And yeah, you're talking about the cost. Basically, to pay off your Game Pass subscription, you have to try like 2 or 3 brand new AAA games to offset the cost. And it's like, you played Forza, you played Halo, boom. If you had bought those individually, you just spent about as much as you spent on Game Pass for the entire year. It's just a screaming deal. I don't know how it's sustainable, or if it is sustainable, how long it's going to be around at this price point. Because to me, it just seems frankly ridiculous.
No, I 100% know for a fact that Microsoft, Xbox, I know I use them interchangeably, it's taking the L on this. Financially, they are, Game Pass is a loss for them. But they have oodles and oodles of money to where they have the ability to be like, we will take the financial loss on this to get ahead. We will take this financial loss I think Xbox's big plan this year was Xboxes in hands. We want to get the Xbox in as many hands as possible. Just to beat this drum again, the ecosystem. Get people in the ecosystem at any cost. Quite literally, at any cost to the company, get them there. And they have succeeded wonderfully, and to their credit. And and as I was ranking the Xbox, I was at a loss, because how do I rank Xbox? Because the more I try to rank Xbox, I'm just ranking Game Pass as a service. And it's like, does that count as Xbox? Yeah, short answer, yes. Long, more in-depth answer is like, how do I rate Netflix? By the quality of its material or the quality of its service?
Yeah, and I think that it's both. I mean, it's just such a part of the brand now that you can't think of one without the other. They're so intertwined with each other that it's like, yeah, Xbox is Game Pass. I never thought in a million years I would buy a digital console. I really like physical games. I like the preservation aspect of them and just having the physical copies on the shelf. But I bought a Series S because I'm like, it's a Game Pass box, and that's what it's been for me. And it's given me some of my favorite games this year too, with Forza and Halo. I think are both in my top 5 for the year.
Oh,
and I played them on Game Pass, and it's like that for me. That's a great year, along with everything else. And on top of that, the Series S was pretty widely available. If you tried for a week, you would have a Series S. If you looked every day for 7 days in a row, you'd get one if you wanted it. You can't say the same about the PS5, the Series X, or the digital edition of the PS5, which is insanely rare. So that's a big plus also, is that me and a couple of my friends were all able to get the Series S without much hassle, which is a big deal. And
I mean, to your credit, and so Xbox is going to get a high score for me, probably the first time in its existence. And but here's the thing, here's what won me over, and we seeing the praises of Game Pass nonstop, and I think here we got a little more technical than just just praising it like the sun and Demon Souls. But is that Demon Souls? Yeah. That's Demon Souls, right?
Yeah, Dark Souls.
Yeah. There we go. God, it makes me upset that Dark Souls and Demon Souls are two different things.
Yeah, I don't play either. Not for me.
Yeah, because I will always be talking about one and halfway through and be like, damn, wait, is this the right one? Yeah. But I digress. So one aspect of Game Pass that I've never really seen no one really talk about, and what made it impactful for me. So Psychonauts 2 came out, right? Yeah. And I missed Psychonauts 1 the first time around. Like, I don't know. I was a kid, whatever, just never got around to it. I mean, kids these days will never understand, like, as much as games come out now, like, they say it's crazy. If you really think about back in the PS2, GameCube era, there was no fanfare when games came out, but they existed in an ocean of other games. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, you didn't have the AAA, you've been waiting for this, but when you went to the store to find the game, there was no lacking in variety. Mm-hmm. And honestly, so in terms of, like, even the biggest games, it was still very word of mouth back in the day for the industry. You played this game because enough people talked about it within your physical IRL circle to make you play it. Yeah. Only because there was just so much choice. And, I mean, let's be real, game is expensive, and your parent wasn't about to buy you 4 games in like a 3-month span. That just was not happening. So you really have to pick and choose. But Game Pass is now taking away that ability. I never played Psychonauts 1. And I'm like, God, I'm going to have to... Nope, Psychonauts 1 is available. I had a friend that never played Kingdom Hearts. They wanted to jump in at 3, but they're all on Game Pass. You talked about Yakuza. Yeah. Man, Yakuza's great. Maybe I want to play 7. But this is the first time in gaming's history where I felt like having not played the previous titles was no longer an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Because if you think about it, so you'd be like, oh, no, they make HD collections. Not every type game gets an HD collection. So if a game didn't have an HD collection, how realistic was it going to be to track down 3 to 4 games on old consoles at that and get ready for this new game? It's a damn near impossible task. and now it's not. And that's, to me, that's the point of game. That should be like a commercial on Game Pass. Like, because that is mind blowing, especially with younger generation of people now, let's say, you know, in their teenager, early 20s and what have you, who just wasn't alive or wasn't around to play these games. It's the easiest sell in the world. And I feel like that is the point of Game Pass that makes it a crowning achievement for me.
And beyond just Game Pass, the backwards compatibility initiative also, it did this year. They put on their last batch of new games for it. But the fact that if you own a physical copy of Sonic Generations, a 10-year-old game, and you put it into your Series X, it now runs at 60 FPS for free. It just does. It got the FPS boost. If this was a PlayStation game, it'd be like, oh, you have to put in a code on Sega.com and pay the $10 upgrade fee and then install it. But no, Xbox is just like, yeah, you got that old disc that from 2011, pop it in, and Sonic Generations still looks good enough that you're like, yeah, this could have come out in like 2018. Like, it looks great, and it's just there, and it's amazing.
And yeah, so I mean, let me just summarize this. Xbox as a service gets a A+ for me this year. Just like Xbox, like if I'm looking at Xbox like the game console, there is no game console. Xbox is now just a service. And it's a service because for me, one thing I didn't add, I don't own a Series X or S. My Xbox experience was solely PC.
Which is crazy. How good it is on PC too.
Yeah, it was solely PC, and you know, at my friend's house. That was it. So I got to experience Xbox without owning an Xbox, and that's just mind-boggling. Like, yeah, we all know people that we can do it. That's not a surprise, but it's one of those things. It's like gaming is a interactive. You know, you can't watch games. You have to experience games. I always tell people that. Like when you get, they're like, oh, I watch. I'm like, you know, gaming is an art you just really have to do. There's just no other way around it. And Game Pass is kind of, I feel like, something that's a similar vein. You can tell people about Game Pass, but until you experience in all the entry levels and ways you can experience, does it truly seem, you know, I get an Xbox controller, you know, connected to my PC. My PC's an Xbox.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I had an experience where Halo Infinite multiplayer was out, and I went traveling to visit family over Thanksgiving, and I was like, I'm so into Halo right now. I considered packing my Series S, and I was like, wait, I can just install it on my PC. It downloads my save file from the cloud. I'm on my PC visiting family late at night playing Halo, come back home, boot up the Xbox, it's like syncing data, and everything I did while playing on PC is just instantly there. And it's just so smooth and easy and just stress-free to transfer these things over, that the relationship between Xbox and PC is so strong that it's actually made me play more on PC, which I never did before, just because I know it transfers to my Xbox, and it's a way to play Xbox games when I'm not at home. And it's like almost a solution to like the Switch. It's like the Switch you can just pull out and take with you. Xbox games you can play on like any device now, and it's just super cool. And that is a place where Xbox is miles ahead of PlayStation, which really doesn't have that at all right now.
Yeah, and you know, to its credit, you know, bye Stadia. Like, I know there's some people who still are rooting for Stadia, but bro, I don't see it happening. They had their
Stadia and F this year. And fail.
No, because I have a friend who's like, you know what? I'm about to try Stadia again. You know, they're finally at a point, and I told them, I was like, even if Stadia is at a point where it should have been at launch, it's too late, because with xCloud, I told them, okay, why don't you get xCloud? Because one, I think it just works better. I don't know. I've never experimented with xCloud, but even if let's just say it's on par with Stadia, it has the bigger library. So that's a no-brainer at that point. You know, Stadia is offering you 10-year-old games, and Xbox is offering those same games, except with every game that came out between now and then. So
yeah.
I mean, I know for PC, not everything that's available for Game Pass is on PC, but the stuff that matters, a good chunk of it is. So
yeah, Halo, Forza, that's what really matters, and they're both there.
Yeah, so I just so it's weird, but so A+, I'm not even gonna just, but you know, that's weird. It's more like I said, it's I'm rating the service more than I'm rating Xbox. But before you tell me your grade, we talked about the other three, but what does Xbox future for next year truly look like though? And when I ask this, what does it look like sans the Game Pass? Because at some point, Game Pass is going to stop being impressive. In the same sense that it stopped being amazing that I can take the Switch anywhere, I can dock it. It's still cool, still great, but it's no longer a talking point because it does that. It's cool. So what does 2022? Game Pass is going to be great. We know that. But what does that look like for Xbox, taking away Game Pass for a second?
Yeah, there's a couple things in the pipeline. You got Starfield, which will be Xbox exclusive coming in November. Outer Worlds 2, I think, is coming next year. And the first one was pretty well received. Stalker 2, which looks amazing anytime it's shown off at an event. Redfall, I think, is on track for next year. That's the new arcade game that they're making. And yeah, there's a few other things. Well, you said no Game Pass. Plague Tale Requiem is day one Game Pass. It is on other platforms, but I guess to me, if something is day one Game Pass on Xbox and not anywhere else, it almost makes it like an exclusive because it's like that's where I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, it's like I can spend no more money and play. Yeah, I'm going with the safe money route.
Yeah, and then Halo's gonna get Forge and campaign co-op, which should have been there already, but big features coming next year along with its first full year of content. So I think next year looks good for Xbox. I'm not sure if the big ones like Fable is coming next year or things like that people are looking forward to. But it looks solid. I think that next year will be solid. I think the lineups for the other two look better for next year, but Xbox is fine.
Yeah. I don't know. Xbox isn't going anywhere. But I asked you that because, so here's my take on Xbox. One, Starfield is going to be a commercial failure. I'm not. No, I say that because a game that's been so built, triumphed, sung the praises of, and we still don't know what that game is or does.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at this point, you don't have a good game, do you? That's just how I feel. You have shown nothing because there is nothing to show.
Mm-hmm.
I can easily be wrong on that, but I just feel like Starfield's kind of a game that's been built up so much to where it's kind of like Cyberpunk 2077. I remember before it released, I told people Cyberpunk 2077 has to be a 10. Anything less than a 10 will be a failure. And honestly, that game would have been a 10 if it worked properly. I will stand by that. I will die on that hill. And I feel like Starfield is in a similar position. I think it won't have any technical issues, but anything less than the most amazing thing since sliced bread will be a failure. And I just don't see Starfield hitting that mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see.
Man, we will
Fallout
see.
4 we didn't see for a long time either. It was announced and then out 4 months later. So I don't know if they're going to do a similar thing with Starfield where they don't show it till like E3 and it looks fine and then is good. But it could be bad too.
I will say this though. Compared to the other two, Xbox is the X factor of next year, no pun intended. It is the wild card because it's easy to forget how many AAA powerhouse studios Xbox now has. And I really feel like next year is going to be the year that we probably won't get any games, but we are going to get a hype train like the game industry has never seen. Because I think next year's the year we start to see the fruits of that labor, the fruits of those acquisitions, the fruit of all the money that those companies received. And it may not take the form of, physical coming this year games, but as we've seen with like Nintendo, when, all it takes is the right trailer with the right amount of belief in a studio to just completely shatter, expectations and, get everyone on board. And I feel like 2022 is going to be that year for Xbox. It's going to be the thing that when we have this conversation at the end of 22, the end of next year in 2022, that we will all be saying that 2023 may be a just fundamentally different year in gaming with everything that's to come. And that's my prediction.
Yeah, 2023. I mean, we have a whole year first, but if Nintendo doesn't release hardware next year, they're probably doing it in 23. And then Xbox could have an enormous year then too. And maybe even PlayStation does. Maybe Naughty Dog's next project comes around. We already know that Spider-Man 2 isn't until 2023. So 2023 could be huge.
Yeah,
we already have a full year to get to.
Yeah, that's my thing. So what do you give Xbox?
Overall, I give them a B. I think that the Game Pass lifts them higher than it should be just based on the pure lineup of games. but Game Pass is so good that I think it elevates them to a B, which is the best grade of the year. I think they had the best year.
Yeah, and just to give people, you're probably thinking, "Oh, why'd you give it an A+?" It's because people like I've been a big Xbox naysayer, to put it lightly, and I just feel like for me to have gravitated them towards them in such a way like I never have before, and I'm talking about since the OG Xbox, even the 360, which I will still argue that the 360 was a horrible console. I know I know the world disagrees with me with that. But no, if you think about the 360 launched prematurely with no games. When I say no games, I mean games that clearly were just could have been easily on the Xbox and stuff. They were trying to beat the PS3, the whole Red Ring fiasco. I went through 360s. I went through my original one, my second one, then got an Elite, which also Red Ring, but I sent it in and they fixed. And, and I think outside of playing Halo on it and maybe a Call of Duty, I really can't tell you any worthwhile experiences I had on the 360. And I argue most people can't either. But,
all right.
But I'll that's a conversation for another day. So this is the first time that I feel like Xbox, and again, it's a service because I don't even own an Xbox, which is wild to me. So and that's why I got to give it the A+.
All right, cool.
Yeah, but Logan, thank you for joining me this week. Thank you for, report cards. It seems like Xbox is going to have a Merry Christmas. So did PlayStation and Nintendo, depending, maybe mom's getting them some good stuff, but I'm like the strict dad that's like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't know, but everyone did enough, and more or less there was enough things that happened this year, and we couldn't talk about it, but I will say this, and I mean it. If you take away all the indie releases from this year, there was no 2021 for gaming.
All the indie releases?
Yes. If you take every indie release from Kenya to Inception to Death's Door to what's the game that everyone kept talking, The Forgotten City. Mm-hmm. Just the list goes on and on and on. If you take away every indie release or even the games that can fall in indie, like It Takes Two, it's an indie game,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that. Indie game.
You like It Takes Two?
No, it is better than I thought it. Okay, screw it. I talked about this last episode. It Takes Two is probably the best co-op game in a decade. Not multiplayer co-op, specifically co-op, split screen, traditional co-op in a decade. It's a lot better than I initially thought. I think the story is trash.
It's horrible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the gameplay is genuinely fun and does get better and amazing in ways I never expected the game to do. I will give it that. I will give it that. There is no universe that exists where it deserves Game of the Year.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I feel like 2021 was the year of the indie. We got so many great titles that came out unexpectedly. And, I'm not saying things like, I think Trickery was another big one that people loved. And, we got Deltarune Chapter 2. And please forgive me, people. I mean, there's too many to list. But that was a big savior of this year. I feel like all those great, just well done indie games really elevated this year out from what I feel like would have been an unforgettable year otherwise.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. But Logan, where can the people follow you, keep up with you, see all the amazing stuff you're doing and products of your hard work?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Logan J Plant. Also, my podcasts at Ode to Games is the main one. And working on NVC every week behind the scenes. Occasionally get to appear on. Keep an eye out. And thanks for having me, Odell.
Oh, no, man. Thanks for joining me. Again, the year's wrapping up, so I'm glad I got you on. I plan to work with you more in the future. And, make sure you give Logan a follow, but also you can follow the podcast at FC Podcast 23 on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, you already know me. I'm Odell Harmon Jr. Follow me there. You talk, I talk back, as I like to say. But as always, everyone, have a great week and be blessed. Peace.